because of CO2 levels in the oceans, we're noticing that crabs are actually getting larger while oysters and scallops are getting smaller. So researchers wanted to figure out why that was the case. And what they realized in several studies that they conducted is that crabs actually absorb CO2 and it makes their shells larger. However, it is a negative thing for oysters and scallops because it makes their shells thinner, and it actually makes them grow a lot slower. So they become prey, and it's much more difficult for them to survive. So a lot of people might think, well, isn't this great news because that means we get bigger crab? But that's not necessarily the case.
No.
While their shells get larger, their meat actually doesn't get larger at all. So you might see this big crab and you crack it open and you realize there's very little meat to it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of these things that it's so obvious this is because of pollution. Like, it's just obvious. And ironically, the Republicans who are against all of the pollution controls will then want a scientific study to disprove that that's exactly what it is. So they don't believe in the science in the first place, but then they'll want a study to disprove the science that they don't believe in. So it's very bizarre. This reminds me of, do you ever see that episode of The Simpsons? It's one of the early ones when Mr. Burns is running for mayor and they find the three-eyed fish because of the nuclear waste, and then they have to put like great spin on it. I mean, that's what's going to happen. All of our crabs are going to be giant, the size of Godzilla, and we're going to be going, does this have anything to do with the pollution? Is this, what do you think?
And by the time we actually want to do something about it, it's going to be too late. You know, and that's the thing that I'm really concerned about. I mean, the damage that we've done at this point is irreversible, and as a result, you know, our kids are going to feel the consequences of it, and it's going to be a nightmare. So the one thing that I'm worried about the most is actually, you know, the level of mercury in our oceans, the acidification of our oceans. It's destroying, you know, the coral, for instance. It's destroying, you know, the livelihood of the fish, of the sea life, and it's destroying our sushi. I know that I'm coming at it from a little bit of a selfish perspective because I love sushi, I love seafood, but it's no longer, you know, as safe as it used to be to consume these products because we're destroying the environment that they live in.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally legit. I think the sushi thing actually makes this a little more human than just being like, oh, all the animals are dying and everyone doesn't see them. But you're not even supposed to have sushi more than once a week because the mercury levels in tuna are so bonkers. I mean, I eat a lot of tuna. On my tombstone, it's going to say he ate too much tuna. Like, it's a lot. Like, I eat a lot of tuna, and I just think, is tuna going to take me down, really? You know? Like, am I going to? But it may well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just what we're doing to the ocean, it's what we're doing to a lot of the food that we consume. I mean, every once in a while, climate scientists will put out an article or they'll leak a press release where they say, oh, you know, pretty soon coffee's going to be extinct, pretty soon bacon's going to be extinct. And of course, that's their way of making it personal, and that's their way of trying to appeal to, you know, the average Joe that might think that climate science is too complex, so they don't really delve into it. But at the end of the day, it goes above and beyond just what corporations are doing. It also has to do with human behavior, and it has to do with us, you know, being comfortable with consuming less and doing little things here and there to make sure that we, you know, preserve our environment.
Yeah, you know, there's so many layers of this because we do things like we overfish, right? And then instead of having wild salmon, which is known for a zillion health things, omega-3s and fatty acids and all that stuff, instead we now eat farmed salmon, which have none of those attributes and none of those health benefits. So even simple things like that, and then of course they're cheaper to get, so then we eat it. You know, and the reason that a salmon that is a wild salmon that lives its life swimming upstream. I mean, you can watch on YouTube any video about this. It's a fascinating thing, watching a salmon's whole life is against the tide. And because of that, its meat becomes healthier, it becomes meatier and has more nutrients because it's living that way. Instead, you put them in a little farm where they just swim in circles all day, and then it's not a good life for them, and then we eat it and it's not a good life for us. Like, we really are all connected that way.
I know. And of course, overfishing is another huge problem. So we love to destroy the environment, and nothing's going to change.
You want some sushi after this or what?
That sounds pretty damn good.
Let's get some tuna.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Done and done.